Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, accompanied by Gil Gallegos, President of the National Fraternal Order of Police.
Party people, where's the president? Party people, where's the president? Party people, where's the president? Come on! Whoop, there he is! Whoop, there he is! Make some noise!
Mr. President, we love you. It is with a great deal of pride and pleasure that I welcome you on behalf of everybody who's here, the citizens of Cincinnati, and also those people who have watched you these last 4 years and know that 4 more years is not enough. It's been 6 months. 4 more years. It's been 6 months since your last visit, and we've waited for your return. Mr. President, you are a friend of working men and women. You are also a friend of neighborhoods and cities, and you understand what it takes to build healthy families and healthy communities. Teachers. A key cornerstone in the foundation to healthy communities and healthy families must be safety and security. And thanks to your leadership, Cincinnati has strengthened its efforts to protect and serve. We will add 29 officers to our safety forces, thanks to the crime bill and dollars from the Cops More program. This will facilitate the expansion of our community-oriented policing program. Our community-oriented policing program takes policing back to the people by putting officers on the streets. And soon, all 52 of Cincinnati's neighborhoods will have a neighborhood resource officer thanks to your leadership and to the crime bill. The community and police working together, block by block, neighborhood by neighborhood, to stop crime. Partnership encouraged and supported by you. Partnership that has helped reduce violent crime in Cincinnati by 19%, almost 20%, between 1992 and 1995, and has reduced overall crime in that same period by almost 18%. That is quite an accomplishment. We know that you will continue to support our efforts as a city and also our efforts as a nation as we all work together and fight together to take back our streets and restore our communities. And I want to take a moment right now and just thank you for your work on behalf of all the citizens of this nation, but for the people of Cincinnati. Thank you. And now I have the honor of introducing a man who is known to every Ohioan. Last March, when the President visited us I had the honor of introducing him as the man who was going to introduce the president. Now I have the honor of introducing the man who will introduce the man who will introduce the president. He is an individual who has dedicated his life to the service of his country, first in the military and now in the United States Senate. He is recognized as one of the foremost congressional leaders and experts in the area of science and technology. He was instrumental in making sure that a community not far from here, Fernald, is cleaned up and is safe for the people living there. Those of you in Hamilton County. He has worked closely with the City of Cincinnati on a number of major projects. His accomplishments are many, and the short amount of time allotted for his introduction cannot do him justice. Ladies and gentlemen, the world knows him as the first person to orbit the Earth. We know him as the Democratic senator from Ohio, a hero in his own time, Senator John Glenn.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be back in Cincinnati, the Queen City once again, and with the President today. 50 days left till this election. 50 days left. And Ohio and the Midwest in particular are going to be places of great concentration over the next 50 days. You can bet on that. And I'm proud to be here today with a president who has indeed made a difference in his first term in office. It's been a good difference. And it's been a difference that he's made to be proud of, and we want to continue that record right on for another 4 years. You know, I don't know how much you noticed the sign at the end of the hall down here, Building America's Bridge to the 21st Century. Now, I like that symbolism, a bridge to tomorrow, sort of conjures up a mental picture of things. I like that symbolism. A bridge doesn't just happen. It doesn't just sprout up like a seed was planted out there. It doesn't just hang there all by itself. A bridge has to have support. It has to have solid footing. It has to have foundations. It has piers and pillars that hold it up or it doesn't become a bridge. It doesn't mean anything as long as it's laid out on flat ground. It has to have that solid footing. And I think we know from all of our American history some of the truths, the verities, the foundations that have built our nation in the past and have led to not only the benefits for our own people, but for leadership around the whole world. And we could stand here today and envision some pillars along with that symbolism of the bridge. And I would submit that what's built our country has been several things. We could go into many things today, but certainly that which provides jobs, prosperity, business, employment, a good economy. That has to stand as one pillar of this bridge to the 21st century. And then we have to have the second. There's nothing more important for the future of this country than education and research. Education and research. And the environment in which we live is another pillar. And certainly a fourth pillar is one we talk about here today, of security for our homes, our classrooms, freedom from crime, that kind of security. Under the economy, this president has been building an economy. He's brought the budget deficit down from $300 billion down to $116, 10.5 million new jobs, real wages up for the first time in 10 years, home ownership the highest in 15 years. That's something to build that solid pillar on for this bridge to the 21st century. And in education, we're talking about the experiences of the past, encapsulating all the best of learning of all history and teaching it to our young people. And along with that, research, the learning of the new for the future. And if there ever have been twin pillars of progress for this country, it has been education and research. And I'm talking about all kinds of research, macro research into the space program and what we're learning there. We saw the flight go off this morning successfully. Micro research, electron microscopes and things like that in the laboratory, and new chemistry and new medicines and so on. The twin pillars of progress, education and research. And what happened on the other side? Well, the other side tried to cut back on such things as Head Start, Goals 2000, Schools to Work, Pell Grants, and summer jobs. And this president fought those cutbacks to his everlasting credit. The environment, the third of our pillars, well, nothing is more important than the clean air we breathe, the clean water that we drink. And let me bring it home to Cincinnati here. Roxanne mentioned I've been working for about, I think it's 12 years now on trying to get Fernald cleaned up out here. We're making a lot of progress on that. I want to see us come to the point where not only can you swim in the Ohio River, I'm an optimist that'd like to see us learn how to swim in Mill Creek right back here. Clean that up. And that's real optimism. Security, freedom from crime, in our homes, our classrooms, our streets. What can be more important than that? And this president has led the way with so many different things in this. 100,000 new cops, assault weapons ban, violence against women, 24-hour domestic violence act hotline, 3 strikes and you're out, $7.9 billion for help prison. Brady bill and ban cop killer bullets. How about that? So what I'm talking about today is a symbolism not just of the bridge, but the pillars that will hold that bridge up, that make it beneficial to every single American and to our leadership around the world. Those are the bases on which to base this bridge for tomorrow. The waters may swirl around those pillars. The tide comes in, the tide goes out, storms come up, the waves rush up against them. These are pillars of importance that have proven their worth. They're based on the bedrock of American experience throughout all of our history. And that's what this president is concentrating on. So it's founded on bedrock. This president's already building. He's made a good record so far, but he needs our help. And we can help be the builders of that bridge to the future. We only have 50 days, and Mr. President, you not only need our help now, and we're willing to work with you today, but we're looking forward to November 5th when Ohio once again leads the way in putting you over the top. Thank you. Now let me introduce the man who's going to 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 introduce the president. As you said, Roxanne said starting out. Pete Ritter. Pete Ritter's a 71 graduate of Elder High School. Good. Let's hear it for Elder. Good. Good. He joined Cincinnati Police in 1980, been on the force for 16 years. He served on the executive board of the Fraternal Order of Police the last 5 years. He was elected president of the Queen City Lodge 69 in December of 95. He hadn't spent all his time just in the office either. He's been a beat cop out there on that front line where he knows what happens with crime and drug abuse on the streets. He's a veteran street cop, and he understands the importance of crime prevention. Prevention, not just trying to catch them after it's over, but prevention. So it's a real pleasure for me to introduce President Pete Ritter, President of the FOP. Pete.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Senator Glenn, Mr. President, Madam Mayor, and brothers and sisters of law enforcement. I am honored to be here as a representative of the Queen City Lodge number 69 Fraternal Order of Police. I'm a police officer, not a politician, and I like actions better than words. Like Senator Glenn said, for 16 years I was a street cop. I know what happened. I know the effects of crime and drugs to you, the individual out there. I made the run. That's a minor accident. I've been on homicides. I've been on the front line. I like actions better than words, and we've gotten action. We have the Brady Law. We have the assault weapons ban. We have more cops on the street. You know, in Cincinnati, we started the cop program, and that's for you, the individual, to get the officer out of the car and to meet the people so he has an understanding of what your needs are, and then he can address those needs. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you another police officer, a man who leads the largest, finest police organization in the country, the Fraternal Order of Police. He has traveled the country nonstop for the past 2 years in support of a strong, better criminal justice system and in support of the due process rights for police officers. We are confident that those here on this stage today will have ample opportunity to finish the jobs they've started. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to introduce Gil Gallegos, the National President of the Fraternal Order of Police. Gil.
Thank you very much, citizens of the Queen City of Ohio. Thank you, President Ritter, Mr. President, Senator Glenn, Madam Mayor, brothers and sisters in law enforcement, and fellow citizens of this great country. I'm here today for what is one of my proudest moments as National President of the Fraternal Order of Police, an organization comprised of over 270,000 members committed to the representation and safety of every police officer in this country, state, local, federal, and to the safety of our citizens of this country. And we all know that violent crime and the drug epidemic has made a police officer's job infinitely and more difficult and dangerous over the past 15 years. Last year alone, 174 police officers lost their lives in the line of duty while working to maintain the public safety in our communities. And Mr. President, you were there with us when we commemorated those officers. You looked into the eyes, the hearts of the families of those officers and shared their sorrow as we did as professional police officers. And for that, we thank you very much. There are many components to the crime problem in our country, and it's easy to respond to the justifiable anger and frustration of our citizens by suggesting tougher penalties for crime, and by proposing longer sentences, more jails, more police officers, more judges, and more prosecutors. And Mr. President, you have done exactly that, and we are, as a Fraternal Order of Police, are proud to say thank you very much for doing that, because that has helped us on the street. And all these are necessary measures, but they're only part of the solution. But until something can be done to break the cycle of violence and hopelessness in our communities of this great country, and until hope is restored to our most underprivileged and our vulnerable citizens, the crime problem will continue to grow. You, Mr. President, have recognized the need for a multifaceted approach to crime and drug prevention in our country. You have been the driving force behind the effort to put 100,000 police officers to our ranks, an effort requested and supported by the Fraternal Order of Police and the millions of citizens in this country. You got the Brady Bill law passed, the assault weapons passed through a Congress that was and that was in the face of unbelievable interest group pressure on Congress. And now you're leading the fight to ban cop-killer bullets, the very bullets that can rip through the protective armor of police officers, the police officers on the street. Mr. President, we are going to be with you in this battle. But we are also with you in your effort to build on successful prevention and intervention programs which will keep our kids safe and discourage them from taking the path of criminality as their only option to survival in the world. We are committed to that. And it is not too very long ago that I participated in the first ever White House Leadership Conference on Drug Abuse and Violent Crime, a trailblazing event which laid the foundation, the type of foundation that Senator Glenn talked about, for a positive and effective approach to curbing juvenile crime, an approach which unifies all segments of the criminal justice system, our citizens, our communities, and especially the children in our struggle to prevent and reduce juvenile crime. Mr. President, you have been an innovative leader in the effort to ensure safe and drug-free schools for children and in curbing truancy. You've supported curfews and school uniforms as effective measures which keep kids out of trouble and will reduce senseless violence triggered by jealousy over clothing or even the athletic shoes that a child wears. And you have been a true leader and our commander-in-chief in the war on crime. And unlike many commanders or would-be commanders, you have always listened carefully to the advice and counsel of the Fraternal Order of Police. We are very confident that under your leadership, police officers will continue to receive the funds and the tools needed to really impact the tough and tragic war, the war we call crime. And you are going to do it, and we're going to do it with you. The FOP is not a partisan political organization. We support those candidates who support our fight against crime and our struggle for better working conditions, salaries, and due process rights for all police officers in this country. And you have been with us the past 4 years, and we intend to be with you the next 4 years. It is for all these reasons that last Friday in Houston, Texas, the Board of National Trustees, at the direction of their state and local FOP lodges, voted to endorse the candidacy of William Jefferson Clinton for the President of the United States. Mr. President, we congratulate you. We thank you, and we are counting on your continued support. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is with great honor to present the President of the United States, William Jefferson Clinton. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Qualls. I am delighted to be back in Cincinnati, and I thank you for making me feel welcome again. And I thank you for doing such a good job as mayor. And
Representative Mallory, that's the most unusual welcome I ever had, but I liked it. And we may have to have a training session to get that down and use it in some other places. I wonder if you're all in such a good humor today because the Bengals won yesterday. I think that may be it. Thank you. I want to say a special word of thanks to Senator John Glenn for flying down here with me and for being an absolutely wonderful United States Senator for Ohio and for all the United States. So thank you, John Glenn. I thank the leaders of the FOP. Thank you, President Gil Gallegos, for that wonderful statement. Thank you, Pete Ritter. Thank you, Jim Pasco, the Executive Director of the FOP, Steve Young, the President of Ohio FOP, and Mike Tenor, the Trustee of the Ohio FOP. I am very proud to have the endorsement of an organization representing 270,000 rank-and-file members of law enforcement who put their lives on the line every single day for the rest of us. I thank you for it. As Gil said and as Pete said, for 4 years I've worked hard to stand with the police officers of America, and I am profoundly honored that they've decided to stand with me for 4 more years, and I thank them very much. Folks, I want to talk to you just a moment about what I hope we'll do in those next 4 years to make our streets safer and to make our children's future brighter. Everybody knows now, I hope they do anyway, we've been out talking about where we are now compared to where we were 4 years ago. We pursued a strategy of opportunity for everyone, responsibility from everyone, and an American community that includes every person without regard to race or gender or income or background. Everybody that's willing to work hard and play by the rules should be part of our American community. This strategy is working. The economy is much stronger. The economy in Ohio, the unemployment rate has dropped from 7% to 4.8%. It's the lowest in nearly 8 years in the country as a whole. Our auto industry is #1 in the world again for the first time since the 1970s. A lot of people in Ohio are part of that ranking, that #1 ranking. We have 10.5 million more jobs. Wages are rising again for the first time in a decade. On October the 1st, 10 million American workers will get an increase when the minimum wage goes up, and I'm happy about that. Yesterday I was in Iowa on a farm in Indianola, and I met, as I often do when I'm out and around, another of the 12 million American working parents who've gotten to take a little time off when a baby was born or a parent was sick without losing their job because of the family and medical leave law, and that's made us a stronger nation. $25 million Americans can be helped because the Congress finally passed the Kennedy-Kassebaum bill that says you can't lose your health insurance just because someone in your family's been sick or because you changed your job. $40 million Americans, because of the Pension Protection Act of 1994, 40 million retired and still working Americans had their pensions protected, and I am very proud of that. I remember well when they weren't protected 10 years ago and how many people lost their retirement. So, it is clear that we are moving this country on the right track. The things that the Vice President used to say, the things that ought to be up are now up, the things that ought to be down are now down. 1.8 million fewer people on welfare than 4 years ago. Child support collections up 40%. What should be up is up, what should be down is down. This is good. These things did not happen by accident. These things happened because we had a different philosophy of how the White House and Washington should work. I had never worked in Washington except as a college student until I became president. And I didn't like what I saw. There were too many people spending their time asking, who can I blame for this problem? And too few people spending their time asking, what are we going to do about this problem? So we asked that question, what are we going to do? And then we proceeded to do it. And I can tell you that I hope that's what this election will be about. I hope we'll have 50 days of people putting forth their best ideas about what are we going to do. Ideas, not insults. How are we going to build the country? How are we going to build that bridge to the 21st century that we can all walk across? Mostly I want to talk to you about law enforcement today, but I want you to think just briefly about how we're going to keep this economy growing until everybody who's willing to work can participate in it. And I'll just mention three things. Number one, we have to continue the work of balancing the budget, but we have to do it in a way that protects Medicare, Medicaid, education, the environment, medical research, and other scientific research and technology. That is important. John Glenn has devoted an entire public career to it, but it's a huge thing. We have some people here in their wheelchairs today. For the first time, because of medical research in the last few weeks, laboratory animals that had their spines severed have had nerve transplants that gave them movement in their lower limbs for the first time ever. This is important. We have to keep investing in this. Our space program is helping us to unlock mysteries of the environment, mysteries of health care. We're sending 2 unmanned space missions to Mars at the end of this year. We will learn some things about Mars, but more importantly, we'll learn a lot more about Earth because we've continued the space program that John Glenn pioneered. We dare not turn our back on research and technology in the future. And for all you young people in the audience who really understand computers, I'll just give you one more. We just joined in a research project with IBM to build within the next couple of years a supercomputer that will do more calculations in 1 second than you can go home and do on your handheld calculator in 30,000 years. So, we have to balance the budget, but we have to keep investing in things that take care of people who need it and that invest in our future, that grow our economy and spend opportunity. We ought to have a tax cut, but it ought to be a tax cut that's focused on the needs of child rearing and education and health care and buying or selling a home. And we ought to pay for it so we can still balance the budget. We ought to continue to work until we have the finest educational system in the world for everybody. Every 8-year-old should be able to read. Every 12-year-old should be able to log in on the internet. And every 18-year-old in America ought to be able to go to college. We ought to guarantee that 2 years of college are as universal as a high school diploma. I want to say that again. I want you to understand exactly what I propose. I propose to make 2 years of college, a community college degree, in 4 years only, just as universal as a high school diploma is today, by giving a tax credit, a dollar-for-dollar reduction on taxes of up to $1,500, which will cover the average tuition cost at any community college in the country. And then beyond that, saying that if you go to college, no matter what your age or what kind of program you're in, a 4-year program, a graduate program, you name it, you ought to be able to deduct the cost of the tuition from your taxes up to $10,000. Everybody. That will make a big difference to America. The third thing we got to do to build this economy, is to make sure we have enough jobs in the places where there haven't been any jobs yet. We now have a welfare reform bill that says to poor people, we will take care of your children's medical care, nutritional needs, and when you go to work, we'll give you child care. But now the income check you used to get if you're able-bodied, after 2 years, you got to be working for that check. That's a good thing if there's a job there. Now we have to put the jobs there. That's a big part of building our bridge to the 21st century. So, we have to build a bridge to the 21st century that leaves us a stronger community. And I will just again mention 3 things briefly. Number 1, family and medical leave laws helped a lot of people, but it can only be used in emergencies or for childbirth. I favor a narrow expansion of it, which says people ought to also not lose their jobs if they need a little time off from work to go to a regular parent-teacher conference or take their children and their parents to the doctor. I think that's important as well. John Glenn, we talked a lot about the environment. The air is cleaner, our food is safer. We've cleaned up more toxic waste sites in 3 years than were cleaned up in the previous 12. Let me just give you one chilling statistic. In spite of all that, 10 million American kids still live within 4 miles of a toxic waste dump. 10 million. In 4 more years, we're going to double the pace at which we're doing the cleanup, clean up the 500 worst ones, so we can say these children, wherever they live, they're growing up next to parks, not poison. That ought to be a part of the bridge we build to the 21st century. We want to be part of a world that's growing ever more peaceful and prosperous, and that means that we have to work hard to face the new problems of the 21st century. We have to finish the old problems that we've dealt with. We have now got all the countries in the world but 3 agreed to a comprehensive nuclear test ban treaty, no more testing of nuclear weapons. But we now have to fight terrorism, we have to fight drug running, we have to fight organized crime, we have to fight the proliferation of biological and chemical weapons. Senator Glenn and I tried to pass the Chemical Weapons Convention to protect our soldiers and our people from the kind of attack the Japanese people had in the Tokyo subway from a terrorist group. We didn't get it for political reasons, but we're going to get it first thing next year to make this a safer country and a newer world. Now, all that will not make any difference unless we can make our streets safer. The children of this country ought to be safe at home, in school, on their streets, in their play yards. We ought to, and I get asked all the time, well, how do you define success in the war against crime? There'll always be some crime. Yes, there will. These folks in uniform, they'll always be in some risk. Yes, they will. The crime rate has come down from 4 years in a row for the first time in a long time. I'm proud of that. But it's still too high, and we all know it. You know how you'll know that we've whipped this problem? When you go home from work in the evening and you flip on the evening news, if the first story is a violent crime story, instead of saying what else is new, you are absolutely shocked and appalled. When that happens, you will know that we're on the right side of the crime problem. But we're moving in the right direction. The 100,000 new police officers supporting people in the community, working together, they're making a difference. We have, since 1994, we've already funded about half of those. We have to finish the job. It's a major point of contention in this election, and it's very important. We have put tougher penalties on the books for repeat offenders especially, and violent offenders, so the police don't do their work and then see it undone by the laws that are on the books. We don't believe that police should be easily outgunned by gangs on the street. That's why we took the assault weapons off the street and passed the Brady bill, and why we're against the cop killer bullets. We passed the 3 strikes and you're out law for people who commit 3 serious crimes, no more parole. It's working. It's working. We're indicting people, convicting people under it, and it's working. We expanded the death penalty to include drug kingpins and police killers because I thought it was important and justified in those circumstances. The 19 assault weapons we took off the street had only one purpose, to kill other people. You know, when we passed the assault weapons ban and we passed the Brady bill, a lot of good people who voted for those bills were defeated in 1994 in their race for Congress because the interest group that was against them went out and told good, God-fearing people from Ohio and Arkansas and other places, that the president had gone off the deep end and he and the Congress had voted to take their guns away, to put their guns in danger. Well, they got a lot of votes with that line in 1994, but they got a big problem in 1996. They got a big problem because, you see, what they didn't tell their people was that we also protected 650 different hunting and sporting weapons from being regulated or confiscated by government authorities. So now 2 hunting seasons have come and gone, and not a single hunter in Ohio or Arkansas has lost their weapon. They did not tell the truth. But a lot of criminals don't have assault weapons, and 60,000 felons, fugitives, and stalkers could not get a handgun because of the Brady Bill. We did the right thing. They were right. They're safer, and we need to stay after it. You know, that's why we should ban these cop killer bullets. Same crowds against banning cop killer bullets. I don't know why. You know, like most people from my home state, I spent a little time when I was a boy living on a farm. I lived in a town where you could be in the woods within 5 minutes. I've been in the woods in every season you can imagine, and I have yet to see a deer, a duck, a quail, a wild turkey wearing a bulletproof vest. I do not see it. We ought to ban the cop killer bullets and protect these people. We passed the Violence Against Women Act to try to help deal especially with problems of domestic violence. With all over the country, police departments like the one here in Cincinnati are training people to be sensitive to that. I met a young officer in the Nashville Police Department who grew up in a family with 5 children where they had a lot of problems. And he's devoting his entire life to helping police departments all over America deal with this problem as well as his own. And after 1 year of focusing on this problem, they cut the death rate in Nashville in half in 1 year. We now have a hotline, 1-800-799-SAFE. I've got it on and we now have had over 45,000 calls to that hotline this year from people who are asking for information to try to minimize that kind of violence. We can turn that around too with citizens helping us on the hotline and helping their local police departments. We can change the circumstances under which too many Americans have lived for too long. You do not have to put up with unacceptable rates of crime and violence. That is the message of this day. But I want to go back to one other thing Gil Gallegos said. This administration is not responsible for any of these ideas. We got all these ideas from law enforcement people themselves. All we did was listen and act. All we did was take what was working and try to go national with it. All we did was to try to empower the people who live in communities all over America who are sick about crime and violence to do something about it. That is all we have done. That was our job. We did it. Now you have to help too. But we cannot expect the police officers to do all of this. And we cannot expect to jail our way out of this problem. You heard Gil say that. We've also supported zero tolerance for guns and drugs in schools. We've supported things like school uniforms and tough truancy laws and curfews. We've supported an effort to mobilize another 1 million Americans to work in citizens groups, to work with local police departments. We got the cellular telephone industry to donate thousands and thousands of cellular phones to help these community neighborhood watch groups support the police. They cannot do it alone. And most of all, we have to realize that we have to give our children some things to say yes to as well as some things to say no to. They're entitled to schools that are open after hours. They're entitled to recreational opportunities. They need those summer jobs. They need opportunities like AmeriCorps. They need those good, positive things. That's why we fought for the drug education, the gang prevention programs, all these other things. You know, I don't know how many little kids have told me what an impression their DARE officer made on them at the school. We know now that one of the reasons we've got a real problem with youth drug abuse is that going way back to 1990, young people began to get the idea again that this was not dangerous. Well, that's wrong. It's not just illegal. It is dangerous. They can kill children. They can destroy their ability to concentrate. For young women, they can undermine their ability to bear healthy children. And we need everyone in the community supporting law enforcement officers, getting that message out to our children, to every child, no matter where he or she lives. It is important. We have General Barry McCaffrey, a four-star general, was appointed to lead our war on drugs after he led our troops south of the border and did so much to keep drugs from coming into America. His strategy is targeted at doing those things which will keep drugs away from our children. We propose the largest anti-drug effort in history, and I hope Congress will give us the extra $700 million we asked for so that we can do everything possible to really effectively turn these trends around and make sure that we have drug use going down, not just among adults, which it is. It's dropped. Cocaine use has dropped by 1/3 among adults in the last 4 years. We have got to get drug use going down among our children. We can't have these kids out there believing they are not in danger when they are. And you have to help. Let me say that in the next 4 years, one thing we have to focus more on is the violence caused by gangs, which is also often related to drug dealing. Over and over and over again, we hear stories of totally innocent children who just happen to be standing on the wrong street corner, happen to be walking in the wrong neighborhood, happen to be going home from school at a bad time. Totally innocent children killed because of gang wars. We see kids going into gangs just to protect themselves because they're afraid if they don't, they won't be safe on the street and in their neighborhood. And we have got to break this. We have on the books an anti-racketeering statute that had a lot to do with breaking the mafia. It's called the RICO law. This morning I met with Attorney General Reno at the White House, and she reported that we have more than double the number of gang-related prosecutions to nearly 40% of all the prosecutions brought under this RICO law this year. These are making a big difference, but they're complicated cases. They take a long time. We're going to have to extend the statute of limitation to make maximum use of it from 5 to 10 years. But you know, we give the government 10 years to make a bank fraud case. It seems to me they ought to have at least that long if an innocent child is gunned down in the street by a gang. Let me just say one thing. Last week in Colorado, I announced a program I'd like to reiterate. I believe it is very important that we get more states to test prisoners and parolees for drug use and to provide more drug treatment in prisons and to revoke parole if people violate it by using drugs. We have a law in the books which says we will help states build prisons if they promise not to let violent criminals out too soon. I propose to amend it to say you also have to give drug testing to parolees. That will keep them straight and keep them from returning. 60% of all the heroin and cocaine used in this country, 60% of all of it, is used by people who are involved with the criminal justice process right now. We need to help them, but more important, we need to protect the rest of our kids and our communities by saying parole is a privilege and you can't have it if you go back to drugs. And I hope you will support us in doing that. So, that's my program for the future. Do more to break the gangs, ban those cop killer bullets, drug testing for parolees, improve the opportunities for community-based strategies that lower crime and give our kids something to say yes to. There are a lot of things to do. The final point I want to leave with you is this. These people up here are doing everything they can. And unlike a lot of folks, we have shown, or rather they have shown, we know how to bring the crime rate down. But they can't do it all by themselves. They need us to support them. I am honored by their support today, and all I can say is, to go back to what Senator Glenn said, If you will give us 50 more days, we will give you 4 more years of making our streets, our homes, our schools safer. Thank you, and God bless you.
President,